Hey, everybody.
We are back.
Is this Facebook?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's Zoom. So we have one set on Zoom. There's a link in the caption there for you to hop on Zoom, because once we get done talking live here, we're going to ask questions. We're going to have discussion. These discussions
it's more interactive
are awesome.
on Zoom.
Extremely. Yeah. But hey, if you're on Facebook, thank you so much for tuning in tonight.
Yeah.
Thank everybody every Tuesday night that you tune in. It means the world to us to just have you all just with us, like we're in our living room having a conversation.
Well, technically we are. Well, office.
In my office.
But yeah,
it's a living room tonight. But tonight we are actually going to share what we were supposed to share Sunday. So you see, what had happened was Sunday was what we call Holy Spirit service.
Holy Spirit take over.
And we had these beautiful notes. And didn't use
not
them.
One of them
came from the heart. That was that. It was a great day.
Yeah.
But we had some really good notes. So we're trying to release Sunday's message on our podcast, but there's a little situation. The series is called Rated R. The content was sort of rated X. So we got to edit that for the general audience.
It was interesting. I'll tell you, it was fun. Sunday was fun. We were off script, definitely.
There was no script.
There was no script, but I think it was really good information, though.
Oh, I do as well.
But we still have to edit it. Yes.
So what are we saying? You can trust and try to get the podcast, but you just might want to show up Sunday at 10, and this Saturday, believe it or not, you can show up at 6 p.m. and get your Sunday service in on Saturday night from 6 to 7:30. In between, fellas, get this, in between the 3:30 and 8 p.m. game. I made sure of that. So I football-proofed church so we could get in our wonderful service and praising the Lord, but we can also have the rest of our night and the rest of our day to enjoy. So if you're in the metro Atlanta area and maybe you have your own church home, but you wanted to check out, like, what's the outlet like?
Yeah.
You might want to check out an outlet night. Also, if you know college students, if you are a college student, we have groceries and care bags for you all. So make sure that you can make it into place Saturday at 6 p.m. If you're on Facebook, let us know where you're from. If you're on Zoom, I can't wait for us to have a great conversation tonight. But we're going to talk about the number one issue in all relationships. Yes, we said it. The number one issue in all relationships. No, it's not sex. No, it's not money. And honestly, it's even before communication. And that is unrealistic expectations. And so we've titled tonight, It's a Thin Line Between Love and Hate. And it's that feeling of when I trusted, when I have my expectations at a certain place and they go unmet, and I was really hoping on something to happen and it doesn't. And so all of a sudden, before you know it, I have this anger, I have this disappointment, I have this dejection that shows up. And if we don't know how to temper and manage that, we're going to destroy a lot of our life's relationships. Because I hate to say it, no matter who you are, no matter how much you love someone, at some point in your life, you personally, yes, I'm talking to you, you are going to let someone down. And get this, if you haven't experienced it today, you will. Someone may even let you down as well. So how do we handle that? You know, what is the significance behind that? And we looked at Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. I included our notes from what we're discussing right here in the caption as well. So literally you can see the path or trajectory where we're going right there in the notes link that I have sent to you all. It's in the YouVersion Bible app. Just search the outlet community and you'll be able to see it. But we wanted to know, like, where do unrealistic expectations come from? Like, where? We know that they're evident in our life, but where do they show up from?
I think a lot of it has to do with home of origin issues. A lot of needs, everybody has core needs, everybody. And so as you get older, you start to learn what core needs you were missing. And typically you try to get those fulfilled in your significant other, but it never works out the way in which we thought it should work out, because honestly, we're putting expectations on a person to meet and fill some very large shoes that they were never meant to meet or fill.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's kind of expand this scope.
Yeah.
To every relationship. As we were driving home, one thing that's been on our heart is how do we get people to not live isolated lives? Because of the advent of social media, television, there is this digital connection that we all have. I mean, right now we're all digitally
we're connected socially.
Connected, but it's based off of a electrical current, and that is sometimes the strength of our connection. And you know, the good is we can all meet together from the comfort of wherever we are right now.
Right.
But the other side of that is the more we keep scrolling, the more we keep looking, the more we're reminded of what we currently don't have.
Oh, I know. The comparison is real on Instagram or on Facebook. You're looking at where somebody was traveling, how somebody's marriage looks, just the clothes somebody's wearing. And I told Vince, I said, honestly, social media is just a scroll of highlights of our life, right? And we all want to take a picture of the wonderful things that's happening, but that's not real life. Like the highlights of our life, while those are wonderful, that's not every day. That's not practical. And it's not realistic to think that my life's going to be perfect every single day. Like it's not realistic.
I had a friend text me about 2 months ago. They helped someone out really in a huge financial way. The person came to them with a genuine financial need. Mm-hmm. And they helped them out. I mean, they really took care of them. And they text me just out the blue, just angry, upset. And I'm like, what's going on? Hold on. They're like, see, this is why I don't help people out. This person was talking about how they had this huge financial need going into this month. And I wanted to help them out with their bills and just make sure that they weren't going to get put out. And they sent me the link to their Instagram page. And they said, look at this caption. I helped them out with their rent, with their utilities. And they talking about they living a good life in Dubai. I said, Dubai. They in Dubai and you help them with their rent and utilities. And so before I was about to get on that train with them, like, how could people do that? But I looked and I began to scroll the picture and I said, Dubai sand don't have no twigs in it. Dubai sand, it looked like sand. It don't look like trees and sand. Like trees and sand is like, those are beaches that, you know, we go to in the continental.
Those are the man-made beaches.
Yeah, continental United. And I looked and I kept scrolling and I looked and I said, that's an oil barge. I said, my man, they flexing on the gram talking about they in Dubai. They in Galveston. And so they had to come all the way down like, oh, that is Galveston. Yeah. Those are the boats. Those are the oil rigs.
But you know, and it's this real, this selfie thing, this taking pictures thing, there's a whole art behind it, right? There's the camera, the lighting, the angles, the what am I going to wear before I get on? So a lot of it is scripted, right? And it's not what we make it out to be, but yet we look at people's lives and we go, wow, if I only had that, without really knowing the full story. You know, when we make judgments and assumptions on things that we think of what we see, but y'all, a lot of this stuff is not true. It's not true.
So before you set your expectations on something that's not even real, I want to give you some keys tonight to help you manage and to temper your expectations so that you do not find yourself casting yourself into a dungeon, into a dark place, into feeling alone, feeling isolated. I really want you to be able to see that, hey, by the mere fact that you have enough electricity to tune in tonight, you're doing okay. And Jesus, I love how ahead of his time he was when he was walking the earth. But in Matthew 7, verses 1-5, Jesus actually did a lesson in what today we coin as social emotional learning. He helped us deal with what happens when we have unrealistic expectations for others. Now, this is in your jobs. This is in your interpersonal relationships, your friends. This is in your marriages, because sometimes even in our marriages, we have unrealistic expectations on each other that we sometimes subconsciously have on each other. We didn't even realize that the word wife in our mind as husbands
had a picture of what that looked like.
That she's supposed to do. And I don't have to tell her that, because in my mind, the
she's
definition,
period,
is supposed to be built in. It should come standard with this beautiful person, and vice versa. Like there's expectations that, a husband's
He's supposed to know how to do this.
Or I'm watching a movie, or I'm watching another marriage, or I'm hearing the pastor talk about what they do for their marriage. Very few times are you going to hear somebody get up and say, look, this is the real deal. And so we can't base our expectations on something that did not come directly from God.
Yeah.
And so in Matthew chapter 7, verses 3, it says, and why worry about the speck or the small difference or something that's wrong in your friend's eye or your brother's eye? And verse 4 and 5, it then says, or verse 4 says, how can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of the speck in your eye, when you can't see past the log in your own eye? And so my wife and I, we looked at the two words, speck and log. Speck just means something inconsequential.
Yeah.
I was just thinking the other day, a lot of the arguments, conflicts that we go through and that we experience, the strains on relationships that we have, like, what are we really arguing about? Like, really? What are we arguing about?
Well, it's nitpicking. We sit in that judgment seat, we start to nitpick characteristics, traits, behaviors of other people without really taking a really good look at ourselves in some regard.
So that comes from, as what Christ says, the log. And the word log in Hebrew literally means firewood or kindling wood or the combustible wood. What we call that in today's terminology, that's triggers. So he says, why are you so concerned about the speck, the minuscule thing that's going on with your friend, with your spouse, with your coworker, with your boss, with your pastor, with your leaders, with your teammates, when you got triggers that you haven't even dealt with? The Lord said, you hypocrite, first deal with your triggers, and then you'll be able to see well enough the speck in your friend's eye. And so unrealistic expectations originate out of comparison, but they're based in assumptions. Yes. Why is that? Our unrealistic expectations come from unresolved triggers in our life. We're trying to preserve ourselves. We're trying to make sure our needs are met. We're trying to take those matters to our own hands without saying, okay, why is this triggering me? Triggers come from us trying to assume a level of control that we don't actually have in a situation.
It's an illusion of control.
It's the illusion of control.
Yeah.
And so all of us have core needs. All of us have things that allow us to tick.
Yeah.
And let's resolve this. Philippians 4:19. My God shall supply all of your needs. That includes your core needs. That includes your emotional needs. We're not just talking about houses, cars, lands, jobs, promotion. Woo! No, we're talking about the needs we have to feel affirmed.
Yeah. Or valued.
Or connected.
Yeah.
Or respected. Or safe.
Worthy.
Or secure.
Yeah.
All of those things cannot come from anyone else. So the myth that we must get rid of is that the things that are missing in my life is someone else's fault.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because the someone else becomes both the problem, but the solution at the same time. And so if you leave your happiness or your wholeness up to someone else to change, y'all, we could be waiting forever. So at some point we've got to just kind of take responsibility and say, it's no one else's fault I'm feeling this way. It's no one else's fault I'm behaving this way. And it's always, if he would just do this, if she would just do that, then I'll change. That is a myth.
It's a myth.
It's a myth.
But if God, he is the one, and we can say that cliche, like, God's going to meet all your needs. It's like, I know God's going to meet all my needs. Yeah, okay, whatever. I need to show you how that's the case.
Yeah.
And in Matthew 3:17, we see an example in the New King James Version of God actually doing that with Jesus. when Jesus was baptized in the Jordan by John the Baptist, in Matthew 3:17, New King James says, and suddenly a voice came from heaven saying, this is my beloved son. We see God affirming Jesus publicly. Mm-hmm. We see God recognizing who he is as a son. He said, in whom I'm well pleased. Mm-hmm. So if we boil down, because unrealistic expectations, we could talk about for the next 2-3 weeks, but if we could boil it down, I want you to hold on to the truth that because you are a child of God, mm-hmm. you already have completed and fulfilled the requirements to pleasing God.
Amen.
Like, I need to do this to please God more. I need to do that to please God more. I need to work hard. No. Simply that you were born.
Yeah.
That you were born his child.
Yeah.
After you accepted Christ. That was all that you needed to do to please him and to be able to receive all the things that you need. Without Christ, you cannot have your internal core needs met, and you will constantly be living a life of comparison.
Yes.
Constantly live a life of disappointment, mm-hmm. without hope. You see, as Christians, we have lives and moments of disappointment. We do as Christians, but we have hope that although I may be disappointed right now, although my life doesn't look the way I prayed, it won't always look this way.
That's right.
And it first starts with you accepting, like, don't base whether or not you're accepted by God based off your current actions, decisions, mm-hmm. or how things look today.
Right.
All of that comes from the Lord.
I remember when I first got married, y'all, I think I put a lot of my needing to be affirmed on my husband. And so what happened was, I didn't even know you were feeling this way until I think we finally just kind of had a heart-to-heart. But I remember him telling me, like, I felt a weight every time we were together. Like, yeah. I felt burdened. And it's nothing that, I didn't even know you were feeling that way. Subconsciously, I was doing this to him. And you were, I don't know, could you describe what that weight looked like?
Yeah, so when we first got married, in my mind, I'm thinking about all the things that a husband needs to do. A husband needs to provide.
And I wasn't making it no better, y'all. I was like, yeah, you need to provide.
And I'm thinking, I'm looking at this comparison of what I was told a husband was supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I look nothing like that. And so I felt like I already was condemning myself that I am this huge, utter failure. And not only did I feel like that internally,
I was making him,
but when I dealt with Ash, I felt like she looked at me like, you really are a failure. So I lived with this weight of not feeling like I'm good enough.
And not only that, y'all, but when his mother worked her whole life.
I was going to get to you.
Yeah.
I was going to get to you.
Well, I'm telling them this.
Go ahead.
So his mother worked her whole life. And so
in my mind, I'm like, you're female, I'm male.
You're supposed to work.
You go to work.
Well, see, I grew up with my mother was a homemaker. So my picture of marriage looked like, no, man provide, woman's, well, I'm not saying all women are like this, but for my mother, she stayed in the house and she took care of the house, which...
My picture of marriage was I was already factoring in her salary into how well we were going to live together. All I had to do was bring half to the table.
Yeah.
I do what I have to do. You do what you have to do. Together, we do it together. And then we're going to be well. And so
here we are at the altar.
Unrealistic expectations. And only thing we saying at the altar is I promise to love, to cherish forever, here and now.
Right. I think that was a song too, y'all.
I promise to love faithful.
Why did we play that song? It was really old by that time. Anyway. Yeah, we did. We got up there. We were all smiles. You know what? I can't deal with him.
And so we get home. So that blows the whole unrealistic expectation that honeymoon is
over.
Sex all the time, everywhere, crazy, no arguments. We're looking like two piranhas just ripping each other's clothes off.
Ever after.
No! I don't know who set that unrealistic expectation, but them first couple weeks, shoo doggy.
I'm surprised we didn't kill each other.
Listen, I was questioning, like, did
we make a mistake? What did we do?
Maybe I was too young. Because I didn't expect, because we were living in the disappointment that we created in ourselves.
Yeah.
Without talking to each other.
So we had these expectations and assumptions of what each role was supposed to look like. When we came in the marriage together and they combusted, right? Because our pictures were totally different.
Yeah.
We had to find what worked for us.
That's right. So we both had two different journeys.
Yeah.
When it came to me resolving, my expectation from my wife, because yes, early on there was this thing of you expect the husband to work, but the reality is you turned down a huge government job so that I could move to Atlanta and follow my dreams. Like, we have to also put that in context.
Yeah.
So I was making okay money after we got married. But to move to Atlanta, she had to turn down a huge government job.
With some good benefits.
Listen, good government benefits. Government.
We did. I don't know if we was foolish or what.
Listen,
we did.
That's that ride or die stuff right there.
It was.
So she turned all that down, and so now we're in Atlanta, and I'm pursuing my dreams, but the same opportunities were not available in Atlanta that were in Mississippi when we lived there.
Which is crazy.
Which you would think
there'd be more opportunity here,
right? Yeah. But it wasn't in our case. And I remember I was getting ready to fix my mouth and say, "Woman, you got to go." And I was gonna say, "Woman, you got to." I know, don't hear this women's empowerment. How you got to look? I'll say, look, I need you. I know I tried this whole one salary thing, but let me tell you, it's getting old fast. And I remember the Lord, because I was about to go talk, and the Lord said, hey, hush. Come, me and you need to talk. And so I was like, all right, Lord, what do I need to do? He said, I want you to look at all the excess in your budget, all of the external things that you haven't cut that I asked you to cut, and all the things that you could tighten up.
Yeah.
And he said, and I want you to do it for a month. And then at the end, if you need to, then present it to her, the option to go back to work.
Yeah. And for me, the process was totally different. The Lord was telling me, Ashley, your husband is not your source. I am your source. And so you need to stop putting these. You need to make this much and to bring home this much and do this much. The Lord was like, that's not his job.
Let me tell y'all right now about Mr. Derek Perry. Mr. Derek Perry is my wife's father, and he did the most amazing job raising my wife.
Dad. Yeah.
That, honestly, I look up to Mr. Perry, because I hope one day I can take care of Ashley and our children the same way that he has taken care, and still to this day takes care of his. But he did a great job. So, we like women that come from good homes. But fellas, you got to understand, if she comes from a good home, she's expecting good home when she go home with you. And not just like startup home. I'm talking like continuation home. Like no one talks to the girl while you're dating and saying, hey, look, I know your dad taking real good care of you. So you know what I'm about to do? I'm about to bring you all the way back.
Yeah, but we were young too. And I think as different seasons of life, it's different, right? But I do think.
But who's going to tell the young girl?
Yeah,
that you're going to have to give up all your luxuries. You're going to turn back in the vehicle that he got because I can't afford. I'm affording this one vehicle. I can't do two.
It's real. But that's, when you're getting married and you're younger. But when you're older, there are some different expectations, right?
Let's listen.
It's
older. It's like, if we had a chart, the older you get, the less potential you need to marry on.
Yeah. But I will say, for ladies who do marry older, it's this whole thing of submission that we still need. I know, y'all, I'm sorry. But it's this whole thing because for so long, it's been our money, our this, our that, like you've been on your own. But when you get married to your spouse, you have to be in unison with those finances and trust each other with those finances. Bring everything to the table.
Your money is a reflection of your heart. So if you're like, look, I'm going to do me.
You gonna
You
do
you. You take care of this bill. Boom, woo. I get it. Woo.
And what we're really doing is we're separating. In separating your stuff like that, you're already kind of preparing for if this don't work out. I got a way out.
Listen, because you can't lose yourself in the marriage.
You're already preparing yourself for it.
So you need to make sure that if something go on.
And I'm not saying, because I know some couples, they do have different accounts, but you
need access. And different accounts have different purposes. What we're saying is access.
Yes.
Where I get my check, that's my check. I might let you know what's in all of my check and all of my funds. And you might be able to, I might show you a screenshot.
The thing is, if I'm not trusting with my money, why am I trusting with my body?
Because I'm trying to get that body.
It don't make no sense.
Listen, when we get needs, a whole lot of stuff that don't make sense makes sense.
No, but you know.
Listen, when you get needy.
It's like you can give them your whole body. But you can't give them no green paper? Okay.
No, because we'll work that out later.
You work that out later.
We're going to work that out later.
And it never works out later.
But we're going to work that out later.
You're already starting off on a shaky foundation.
Hey, look, it's going to be shaky, but we're going to work that out later.
It's going to be shaky. But that's what I'm saying. You're already preparing yourself for what that's going to be.
And I don't know why we're talking about, bridging
this was not
these resources together, but your barrier is your heart. And the proof of your heart is your resources.
That where your treasure is, that's where
your heart will be also. The test is how much are you willing to disclose about your finances? And if you're guarded, then they're saying that I'm guarded with my heart. So the question has to now be, what is causing you to still be guarded with your heart? What unresolved trigger are we dealing with? Because now we have an unrealistic expectation that we're going to have this cohesive oneness in our marriage,
and there's already an aspect of your.
But I am showing you that there's one of the most important aspects I'm trying to shut you out from. So that's unrealistic we're setting up
already.
Marriage.
Yeah, it is. That's so true. I don't know how we got here.
I don't know either, but we talking.
Amen.
Amen. So let's put all this on a bow.
Yeah.
All this in a bow.
On a bow.
On a bow. On a bow. In the bow. Wherever the bow is. And oh my. That's it.
I think we're done for today.
We are done for today.
We can't get to none of that. We still didn't get to the message. Oh well.
No, we did get to the message. We just didn't get to that one chart.
Oh, it don't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not going to show the chart to the Zoom link. So if you're interested, you can hop in the Zoom link and see this chart. But
you want to just say this one? Or no, you're done. I know we're done.
Yep. That's it.
Okay. So in closing, if you're taking notes, the last note I want to share. Oh, I need that call. Last one I want to share is how to live free from unrealistic expectations. And here's the key. Y'all ready? Give yourself and others room to fail, room to learn, and room to grow. Okay? Give yourself and others room to fail. So what does that look like, babe?
Do not expect perfection from yourself and others. We are all going to make mistakes.
Right.
But we can't stay in that mistake. We need to learn from our mistakes. So
that's the second one.
So our conversation has to be after a mistake is made, what can we learn from this? And when we have honest dialogue, we then can grow from that moment.
And progress.
Progress. And so we're going to make mistakes. My challenge and our challenge to you is make new mistakes.
Yeah.
We're constantly making the same ones. We need to be honest with each other and have an opportunity for us to learn from what's going on and to grow from it.
Yeah.
So that's all for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in on Facebook Live.
Yeah, thank you.
We have a treasure trove of questions that have been coming in from around the country that we're going to start to answer on this Saturday night.
Oh, there's some good questions too.
There's some real questions, not just about marriage, but relationships, parenting, church,
children,
everything.
Yeah.
This Saturday, y'all do not, I have some special treats. I'm trying to tell y'all this weekend at the outlet. So thank you for tuning in. If you're on Zoom, stay on. We got some more questions and some more stuff to talk about. We'll talk to y'all later.
Talk to you later.